and welcome to Future Insight Technology Fit 23, delivered by Chess. Who are Chess? Chess are one of the UK's leading independent and trusted technology service providers, employing over 300 people across the UK, supporting over 20,000 organisations. Fit is a knowledge-sharing event focusing on the future of work, technology and business. Today's event covers a number of areas, including network, cloud and security, and brings together representatives from a range of leading technology companies, including Microsoft, Intel, and Cisco. My name is Don McIntyre. I'm a designer, technologist, and educator, currently working at the Glasgow School of Art and also at the Digital Health and Care Innovation Centre, which doesn't get any easier to say. I'm design director at both those organisations, and I suppose relevantly and formally of the Chess Parish, where I held the role of creative lead, and where I also had the privilege of meeting and indeed befriending, among others, Andy Walker, who is Digital Account Director at Chess. Andy joins me today to talk about, among other things, how we navigate the complexities of information management. So what we mean by that is the people, as well as the technology, the role of tailored systems in enhancing efficiency. So how do we work with clients and partners to establish how to evolve products and services from their out-of-the-box state, the state they arrive in. Data security, storage, access, and sharing. So I see this in my work in education and healthcare all the time, particularly with respect to migrating content from an older system into a new 365 system. The lens through which we'll view these topics is rather selfishly, but perhaps understandably, education and healthcare. But before we do that, Andy, would you mind introducing yourself?
Thanks very much, Don. Yeah, Andrew Walker, almost 30 years now in the ICT industry. Started off as a developer, database administrator, up through a chain into consultancy for dashboards. And since its acquisition by Chess, I've been more of a poacher turned gamekeeper. It's more of the operational side of the business now. It's more technical consultancy, technical operations. Current role really sits as a digital account director in the enterprise zone. Really, I act as the conduit, if you like, between the business requirements and the development team being able to speak both languages.
Sure. And you're dead experienced in it, Andy. We've worked on that for a long time. The two sectors I'm involved with, Andy, on a day-to-day basis share similar issues with respect to information management. And these, and I mentioned in the opening, data volume, data silos, or the tendency to get into data silos, and legacy systems. So, and those three elements, do those resonate with your experience in other sectors, Andy? And with that in mind, how do you go about addressing some of those typical challenges?
It's absolutely the case, Don. It's the data is more valuable than oil these days in terms of what people tell you, in terms of, you know, its value to the business as a whole and to, you know, other people. That's why we get so many people trying to steal it. I mean, structurally, a lot of the time it is about coming to these conclusions with organizations. Like, the power of the data is there. You have a multitude of pieces of data siloed in different areas, and one of the things that we talk about is the one source of the truth, certainly from a Power BI, Power Applications kind of dashboard perspective. It's about drawing that data together into some sort of, you know, format that you can leverage. It's, you know, people don't often understand the things that they build themselves, you know, methodologies that they build that works for them. It's IP, it's pure IP, and there's such value in that. It needs to be protected, but also at the same time leveraged for you know, for greater benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the tools that you and I, particularly you, have a great deal of experience in is SharePoint, Andy. So in terms of businesses looking for increased efficiency, what would you say are the key features of a tool like SharePoint to provide that meaningful efficiency?
A lot of the time, John, people always see SharePoint as a kind of collaboration document management tool, and at its heart, it's, you know, it gives that ability for organizations to have the data, share their data with colleagues, work collaboratively on documentation, and then bring it back together into a document that you can, you know, push out. But it's a much more nuanced tool than that. And I think while at its heart, it is a document management system, let's not deny it, you know, it really is the backbone of other areas that Microsoft have worked on. Teams is a prime example. A lot of the time we do have this conversation with people about SharePoint, and, you know, they might say, "Oh, don't use it." So, well, it's actually the backbone of Teams. All these collaboration areas, these Teams channels you work in, it's all driven from SharePoint. That ability to collaborate And I think that drives the process. I think nowadays, it's about integration. It's about being able to, take that information that you've stored in SharePoint and then wrap workflows around it, improving processes. That to us is a key. And it's why a lot of the time now, maybe 10 years ago, it would be, we've got some files in a file server, I'd like to put them into SharePoint, and it would just be a lift and shift. You just take and dump. Now it's more about what are you trying to do with this, because a lot of the planning, it's about planning now more than anything else. What's your end goal for the documentation that you want to place in SharePoint, and can we let you have better usage of it?
Okay, so on that note, and I think you mentioned workflow there, Andy, which I think is a really good point. So in terms of the types of SharePoint instances or versions that are available, how does an organization go about knowing and determining which of those available types of SharePoint is the most appropriate to them, do you think?
It's like, what's your core? What's the core of what you wish to do with it? We do still have an awful lot of clients that are on premise. It sits in the physical environment. The challenge with that now for them is that realistically, in order to get the most benefit out of SharePoint moving forward, it's got to have that more Azure in the cloud approach. It's come at probably learning for some clients the fact that it's safe in the cloud. There's always been that element of people like to tap the server and say that I know where my files are, they're there. But it's a lot of diminishing returns. Fewer engineers these days are kind of hardware driven. They don't see hardware. If you think about a car mechanic of 20 years ago, would intricately know how to look at an engine. Whereas now an awful lot of time your car goes wrong, goes into the garage, and someone plugs a cable into it, and then the computer tells them what's wrong. It's that scenario. We never try and force people down a route of, leaving on-prem if it's not, if the business drives that way. But the fundamental thing is we tend to try to take people down a journey looking at what now is needed, but also a little bit in the future. What is coming down the pipeline? What do they want to try and achieve? And what is the strategy of the organization set with regards to, how the data works? You yourself, we talk an awful lot about the one patient record, the digital record that would transform the health service, not just in Scotland but across the UK. How do you go away from the big stack of paper to the big stack of scanned documents that are sitting on a SharePoint server on-prem, to leveraging the cloud and what the cloud can provide in terms of all the other good options?
Okay, let's assume that's being done. Let's assume a client or a partner understands from their perspective their business requirements and what they need to achieve. How, and obviously not a detailed answer, Andy, but how can a tool, a product like SharePoint, be customized to suit those needs? To what extent is there flexibility there?
Yeah, that's the loaded gun question, Don. The answer, of course, is how deep are your pockets? SharePoint is incredibly flexible tool, and you can align all manner of workflows, additional elements, customizations into it. Now, however, the reality of where we are now, it's not untrue to say that SharePoint's had a lot of investment by Microsoft. That back in the early noughties, as you and I both know, we made an awful lot of money in our previous company making SharePoint not look like SharePoint. It's quite ugly. The investment made now is such that there is a very flexible, user-driven how to do things too. The simple answer is, as I said, how deep are your pockets? But I think as an organization, what we tend to do now is we tend to go back to the client and say, there's an awful lot of stuff here that's out of the box. I understand that you want to go down a route of a little bit of customization, that's fine. But if you customize it to death, A, it's expensive, and B, at the end of the day, it may not still fit purpose. The easiest example to give in recent times, very recent times, is obviously Birmingham City Council. I mean, you take a step back sometimes when people say, how can a new IT system have £45 million to fix it? Simply because they agreed to take the out-of-the-box features and match their processes against it. And at some point, I think 2021, somebody decided, actually, we'll get the wooden mallet out and panel beat the system in order to fit their processes, and that's such a costly way to do it. A lot of the time, we just simply say to the client that we're not going to build you a Ferrari if you're still learning to drive. It's about going at the pace that you are comfortable with. And while Microsoft SharePoint really flexible, let's just get the basic building foundation blocks in for the first part of the house, and then we'll build on top of it later.
Absolutely, and I was awaiting the first analogy, Andy. That was a good one. So let's make the assumption then that the SharePoint or another 365 tool or product has been shaped accordingly. How, in your experience, is it best achieved? How is the training and education of the people that will be using that tool best achieved? Because, you know, take a large organization like the NHS or parts of the NHS or a council like you described there. How is it best to communicate to that group how to get the best use of the system?
Well, actually, it's actually, we start off with quite a lot of what we call requirements capture, discovery processes. And what we try and do is we try and ask the main stakeholders to paint the sky as blue as possible. That doesn't mean it all gets done, but they've had their voice, the problems, the challenges that they want to achieve, and you get round. That's now on a bit of paper somewhere that we can understand it. We build a menu from that in some regard. But it's also about making sure that those that know that the SharePoint's coming down the path, if you like, have an understanding of the tool before we even get to build, before we even get build stage. It's to start making people familiar with it. Because at the end of the day, if you've gone round and you've captured everyone's main challenges and you've explained to them that budget will only stretch so far, but what we love to create is a roadmap. So we create a roadmap with clients 2-3 years down the line in terms of fiscal scenarios, but it's all driven by collaborative working between ourselves and the client, and therefore then we've got the list. What's your prioritization? I mean, the example that we always go back to at this moment in time is we talked an awful lot about Teams being a really good communication tool as part of the SharePoint family and all that good information. And when we're talking about it, and in truth, it was the 6th horse in a 5-horse race, and then came COVID. And suddenly, because we talked to the client base about it, they at least understood there was a product out there that could help communicate remote working in that situation. And it's all about just talking to the client and really informing them of what's possible. It's not about we need to do it. It's about what's possible now, what's possible 6 months, 9 months, a year, 18 months, and fit budget accordingly.
So that's a nice segue, Andy, and it's almost as if we planned it. So perhaps the last question, a couple of minutes, I guess, because I think you've probably got some really meaningful ideas in this. What's next, Andy? What's next in terms of what SharePoint can offer? And what's next in perspective of the demands of people using the tools? Where do you think there's a balance there between the art of the possible in terms of meeting those requirements, and then how business will drag the product forward in terms of meeting needs?
Microsoft launched Viva for as part of the toolkit, part of SharePoint, part of the M365 package as a whole. To keep a really high level on it, it's about giving a little bit more of a holistic approach to how your organisation works with your employees, your people. The other exciting part for me actually is obviously AI. It's been driven quite a lot by what happened this year at the conference for Microsoft, and that was a really key. It was the key plank of a lot of the conversations that happened. It's still a little bit of an undiscovered country now, to be honest with you. We always have ChatGPT now out there where the questions that you're asking are contained within the organization's own data area, if you like. It's not going outside. But Copilot's coming along the line as well, linked into that. It's going to be one of these exciting times again, because it's a little like you can pretty much do anything with it, but what you want to do. And that's the piece that I think maybe will be interesting for us to have a conversation that fit 2024 if we're all squared and well.
Yeah, but thank you very much for your time. And it's been great catching up again. 2 other sessions I think I'd like to pick out going on today later on, 10:10, the dark side of the web with CyberLab. And at 12 o'clock, there's a panel entitled The Future of Work in the Era of AI with Oliver Loftus. Well, certainly worth checking out. I certainly will be. Thank you very much for joining us. And I hope you get more out of the sessions as they go forward. Thank you.